In this video, we'll get a demo of the Spring Boot Initializer. Earlier, we discussed the Spring Initializer. It's a website where you can quickly create a starter Spring project. So it's at start.spring.io. We basically go here and select our dependencies. It'll actually create a Maven Gradle project for us. And then we can actually import that project into our IDE, like Eclipse, IntelliJ, NetBeans, and so on. And so that's the basic idea of the Spring Initializer. And we'll actually use this in this demo coming up here. Now let's have a quick word on Maven. When building your Java project, you may need additional jar files. For example, Spring, Hibernate, Commons Logging, JSON, and so forth. And one approach is to simply download the jar files from each project website and then manually add those jar files to your build class path. And that's fine, and that'll work okay. However, Maven provides a nice solution. We simply tell Maven the projects that you're working on, the dependencies like Spring, Hibernate, etc. Maven will go out and download the jar files for those projects for you, and Maven will automatically make those jar files available during compile and run. And you can kind of think of Maven as like your friendly helper or your personal shopper. You simply give Maven a shopping list, say, hey, I need dependencies A, B, C, and D, and Maven will go out, grab those jar files, add them to your class path, and make them available during compile and run. A really nice feature, and we'll use Maven in this course. Now, we'll just kind of cover the basics at the moment. I have more information on Maven I'll give you later in the course, but for now, just think of Maven as a nice utility that'll actually download the jar files and make them available to your project, like your friendly helper or your personal shopper. So for actual development process, so the first thing we'll do is configure our project at the Spring Initializer website, start.spring.io. We'll download the actual zip file that it creates for us, and then we'll actually unzip that file. And then finally, we'll import that Maven project into our IDE. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in and let's get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up a web browser. And so the first step is configuring the project at the Spring Initializer website. So let's go ahead and visit start.spring.io in our web browser. All right, so we're here at the Spring Initializer website. We can generate different types of projects. Here we'll select Maven, different languages here. I'll choose Java. And then also, as far as the Spring Boot version, I'll choose this one listed here on the screen. So choose the most recent version that they have here. Avoid the snapshot versions because they are alpha, beta. So just choose the latest released version. I guarantee you the version that you see on your computer will be much different than what's recorded because new versions of Spring Boot are released on a very frequent basis. So simply just choose the latest released version. Alrighty, so that's taken care of. We can move into our project metadata where we can set up our coordinates here. So I'll set up the group ID, com love to code Spring Boot demo. And as far as the artifact ID, this is the actual name of my application. So I'll just call it my cool app. And for dependencies here, this is where we go through and basically just choose the Spring Boot starters that we want or the actual dependencies that we want for our application. So here I'll just keep it simple. I'll just choose web. So this will give us the full stack web development with Tomcat and Spring MVC. So be sure to click that option and make sure it's selected and it appears here as far as selected dependency. And then from there, just go down to the bottom and download the zip file by clicking on Generate Project. So in the bottom corner there, your browser, you'll see that the file was downloaded. So that's mycoolapp.zip. I can swing over to my file system, and the next step is unzipping that file. So I'll just move into my downloads directory on my computer. And here's that mycoolapp.zip that was just created by the Spring Initialzr website. I'll simply unzip it or uncompress it. And then I'll basically just take this folder here and just copy it. So on my file system, I have a directory here called dev spring boot. This can be any directory on your computer. I just like to move things to a different directory because the downloads directory tends to get mangled. So I'll just paste this item here into dev spring boot. Again, this could be any location on your file system. And so inside of here, we have this POM file and some other files and source and so on. And we'll talk more about this in a bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and swing over to your favorite IDE. So I'll just import this Maven project. And now I just need to browse over to where the Maven project is located. So I know it's in this dev spring boot directory that I'm using on my file system. And it's in the my cool app directory. And I just hit open. So give it some time. It's going to import the Maven project and actually download all the appropriate Maven dependencies that's needed for this given item. So I'll go ahead and speed the video up a bit and make it past all of this wait time. All right, so there we go. So Maven is finished downloading the internet. And so now I have this my cool app as my Maven project here. And there are a number of files that are in this project. So we have the pom.xml, that's the Maven file. We have some Maven W files. I'll talk more about those later. Then we also have this mycoolapplication.java. There's a resources directory, and there's also a test directory. So in later videos, we'll actually cover every file in this project. So don't worry. So we'll cover everything. So don't worry. We'll go through this complete. But for right now, let's just take a look at this Spring Boot application. It's called My Cool application. We make use of a little fancy Spring annotation up here for Spring Boot application. I'll talk more about that later, but it basically says, hey, we have this Spring Boot application. And then we use this piece here to actually bootstrap the Spring Boot application. So we say spring application.run and we give the actual class name that we're going to run. So that's our My Cool application. And again, I'll get into all the gory details on how this Spring Boot application annotation works and also how the main method works. But for now, let's just try and run it just really quickly here. So it's important here when you run this that you run it as a Java application, not server, because Spring Boot actually includes its own server. So there's no need to run it on the server. Just run it as a Java application. And then if we review the logs here, we'll see some interesting pieces of information. So it's starting our My Cool application. And remember, Spring Boot includes an embedded server. So it says, ooh, Tomcat is initialized on port 8080. Nice. I like that. That's really cool. And then at the bottom, it'll say, hey, Tomcat has been started on port 8080. So this is great. So our application is started, up and running. So that means we have an application that's running that has an embedded Tomcat server with it. So this is really awesome. So if I swing over to my web browser here, and I just open up a new tab and I simply go to localhost 8080. And, oh, error page. Okay. Well, this is okay for now. We haven't added any real code to our project yet. So we haven't added any controllers, no view pages, and so on. We'll do that in later videos. But at least at this point, we know that a server is up and running, and we simply need to do some more coding or configuration for it. But again, we'll get into all those gory details in a bit. Okay, so we have the basics going, but we still need to do a bit more work. And so we'll cover that in the next video.